It means I am of the Spirit, yes! Big waves there, Cheryl Ann. Okay, now the next speaker I'm going to introduce his name is Cyril Keeper. He is Aboriginal. He was born in Barons River. And he did serve in the Canadian Parliament from 1980 to 1988. So he is going to introduce him now, and he'll give you his own unique perspective on the whole SPP issue. Cyril.
Well, I don't think I would have started off this event by announcing that the food and the drinks are over there. Tansei Ani. My name is Cyril Keeper. He just said that. But Keeper is a translation from the Cree. It was translated in the 1800s, about 4 generations back now. And the Cree is Kakun Nawesa, which means he who takes care of things. I think it's ironic that we're out here today in this beautiful sunshine in the open, amongst the public with the cameras running. And on Monday, Harper and Bush and Calderon will be in New Orleans, behind closed doors. New Orleans. New Orleans means something to me. It stands for something. It's symbolic of something. We know that Katrina caused the catastrophe in New Orleans. But we also know that there were engineering reports well before Katrina that indicated that the dikes needed to be maintained and repaired.
Hey, what's up, bro?
Augmented.
Good to see you.
But they had governments in the United States all through that time who believed and who preached and who convinced the majority of the voting population that government is evil, that public spending is wasteful. So they didn't do what was necessary in order to protect their people. So I think that it's really symbolic.
Tell them to look who it is.
It's important that those people are there.
I'm level 45.
And you got to remember that Harper, our Prime Minister,
no, not yet. Not yet.
has a Minister of Finance called Flaherty. What did Flaherty spend the last few weeks doing? He was attacking the Ontario government, which is unheard of for a federal finance minister to attack a local finance minister before his budget comes down. He was attacking him because he wasn't cutting corporate spending and he wasn't cutting it deep enough. Now this is a guy who was a member of Harris's government in Ontario and cut halfway houses so that prisoners could not be helped as they come out of jail, but were forced back into the jail, which didn't make any economic sense and no social justice sense. So we are faced with leaders who believe that government is bad and that public spending is wasteful. And that's why they're negotiating this agreement. Because that's why they're doing it behind closed doors. Now, some people might doubt, even if we brought these negotiations out into the open, that anything could be changed. And maybe there's some truth to that. But when I was in the House of Commons in the 1980s, we had the patriation of the Canadian Constitution. This involved provincial and federal governments in this country. And that document was changed and improved because of public participation. Without the women's movement, without the Aboriginal movement, without the public across this country getting involved in that issue, we would not have the kind of Charter of Rights and Freedoms that we have today. The original draft was much weaker. We would not have the equality of women and the equal status of women clause in that charter if it wasn't for public input. We wouldn't have the existing Aboriginal rights that are there that have proved beneficial to Aboriginal people in subsequent court negotiations. We wouldn't have it if the negotiations were not taking place in public. So the democratic public debate on issues is really crucial, particularly when we're considering measures that would limit legislative capacity. Measures that are being designed by people that do not want you to use public authority for public benefit. Now, I was born at Barons River, which is an Indian reserve on Lake Winnipeg, and I spent the early part of my youth at Matheson Island, which at that time was a isolated community. And I lived in a log cabin. I know that Bill Clinton claims he did. But we had no electricity. We had coil oil lamps and gas lamps, and it was a different world. Now things, and at the time I must say that as an Aboriginal person you were taught to be ashamed of yourself. So there has been some progress in this country, and today Aboriginal people are proud to be Aboriginal people. They are so proud that in the last national census the number of Métis people went up by a very significant percentage. That's progress, but there's much more that needs to happen. And we've got to have the full capacity of our public institutions in order to achieve what needs to happen. I was born poor. And it was only until I visited Chile many years later that I realized how lucky I was to be born poor in Canada. So I want to keep perspective. But the poverty that exists in this country has always been what has motivated my concern for public policy issues. It's because I've experienced it and lived it and know what damage it does to people. And it does do damage. I remember as a child living in Selkirk, Manitoba, and there was no food in the fridge. I mean, no food. Well, there was some syrup. So me and my brother ate the syrup. And then we hitchhiked from Selkirk to Hudson, Manitoba, where we had relatives. And halfway there, we got a ride with this guy. And this man said, "You guys, you look hungry. I'll buy you lunch." My brother was older than I, and he was very proud. We said, "No, we don't take charity." And I was sitting in the back ready to hit him over the head. But I want to say this. I just want to say that I know what poverty is, and I know that we have to get rid of it, and I know that we can limit it, and we can eliminate it. But we can only do it with the use of public dollars and legislative authority, and we cannot sign an agreement that says that we cannot use that authority for those public goods. There's another man who we've heard much of recently, who started out being concerned about racial equality, and we have to deal with that in this country, and poverty, who we've been reminded of lately, and that is Martin Luther King. I mean, Obama in the United States, who's running for president, and I must say that I think that either Democratic candidate would be good nominees. But he has reminded people of that in the media. And Martin Luther King started out by dealing with discrimination and race, and then he moved to poverty. And then he moved to war to deal with these issues, because they're all connected. They're all connected. And we need for our Parliament to have the authority, and to use the authority, to stop the military activity in Afghanistan, to take the action that's necessary on the environment, and to reduce or eliminate poverty in this country. So we need our public authority. So let me say that this agreement that's being negotiated behind closed doors must be brought out in public. It is not right that 30 corporations, or however many, get access to the government and that the public does not. Yes, corporations need access to government and need their needs to be met. But the public has to be paramount, and our needs must be met. When General Motors goes to negotiate and says, well, we need roads so our cars can travel and we can sell the cars, well, we also need public transit. So there is a value in democratic debate and democratic discussion that leads to a good society, and that's why this issue must be brought out in the public, and many more people need to hear about it. Thank you. Woo!